Hello, this is that BMX guy, and this will be my video on assembling the Tamiya XV-01 chassis kit. It is a rally chassis kit. It comes in this box. No body comes with my kit. It's kind of just a rolling chassis once it's assembled. Here's the manual. Manual is very simple. The chassis in this one has compartments. You got a servo compartment, a radio gear compartment, and then the battery compartment. Now you access this battery through the bottom. Anyway, this seems to be just normal, ABS plastic or whatever they use. I don't know what that is. FRP. This in particular kit comes with tires, which is nice. They have foams for the tires, but I'm not going to use foams in my tires. I didn't use foams before. Like with the HPI rally I had before this, I never used the foams. I found that the foams didn't make any difference. All the parts in here, you got all the plastic trees, a whole lot of plastic trees, gearbox pieces, gearbox covers, hinges, servo pieces, shock towers. Now what's interesting about, these shock towers don't look like what they're in the manual. The manual shows like carbon fiber shock towers. I'm not really sure, but all the parts, many parts. Got the rims, the actual gearbox halves. You got the actual only belt in the whole car. Maybe you can make it this front wheel drive too, or I might. The rims for the tires. We have all these little pieces, I guess for sure. This is actually on the outside, this thing. It just shows it comes with shocks. Oh, maybe that's why. Maybe those are somewhere. I just don't know where they are. Maybe they're in one of these bags. You got a bumper with this. You have some of the parts bags look like they're labeled. The A parts are what it starts with, so I think that's findable. It seems to be like transmission pieces. B, whatever, what happened to it. B actually has the shock towers that seem to be carbon fiber or FRP. I guess I have to glue the edges of those guys if I want to use them. Bag C, looks like it's just turnbuckle, pillow balls, and stuff. I don't know where bag D is, but we have bag E. Just seems to be more screws. What's nice about Tamiya is they still come with motors with most of the kits. So it came with this Johnson motor. I may put this in here, but maybe I'll use the brushless motor. Johnson motors actually are pretty reliable bushing motors. This bag still has like springs, other stuff, some more gears, looks like oils, and maybe glue, grease. There's bag D. So bag D seems to have the springs and dog bones and more stuff. Anyway, I'll move this project along, and I'll start out with bag A and the manual. So anyway, the manual kind of starts you with bag A normally. Anyway, gives you all this other stuff to read. what tools you need, but bag A, obviously, is where I'm starting. It looks like I'm gonna make 2 differentials. Even though it doesn't say make 2 differentials, but you know, I'm looking at that and I don't see it says make 2. But I'm assuming to make 2. I guess just doing it. Anyway, I'll take this bag apart. Okay, so I open up the bag A. Also, I had to open up the wrenches. It comes with a few wrenches here. I'm going to say it's a 2.5 millimeter, and this is a 2. And then this little open-ended wrench. And the normal, you know, T-wrench that comes with most of the Tamiya cars. Anyway, I got that already. So basically everything in there was most of the gearbox. What seems to be missing is the other gears. But it has a pinion, got all the ball bearings, and whatever. These look like just, oh, out drives. And we got seals, O-rings, screws, the caps for the diffs, and the actual diff housing. So there are 2 diffs. There's this blue motor plate, because Tamiya likes blue just like Team Associated. Comes with a spur gear, which I guess is a 68 tooth. You know, I actually might have smaller of these. Because brushless, it kind of needs a higher gearing than what they give you for this silver cam motor. Anyway, yeah, that's all spread out. I'll show what's going on with it, at least the 2 diffs assembled. Okay, well, after cutting all these gears out of these trees, which I'm not even done, I still got plenty. You had to get this together. Wow, that pin is such a pain in the ass to get in there, but it gets in there. This gear, this one bevel gear actually sits on that. That sits between there. So this is the assembled internally one. They said to use like oil or grease, but I never really found any real benefit to it. I mean, it just gets sloppy in the gears, and plastic on plastic shouldn't really need any lube anyway. I mean, they're self-lubricating with their own powdery residue. Anyways, the diffs are getting together. So the next thing I'll show a fully assembled diff. So assemble with both sides. That one gear I put on this cover. They say to put oil in there. Maybe I'll add oil in a second. But this cover went on there. I can't really do it. This is the other side that sits on there. Anyway, the diff assembled looks like that. It's just 2 out drives. You add a few little bearings and pad things in there just to make the dog bone stay in, but that's pretty much the gist of these guys. So one's basically done. Okay, so the diffs are together. They have these little foam inserts. I did put the oil, the damper oil. Anyway, the diffs were probably the worst of the whole gearbox, so that's over and done with. I gotta say that the pin that goes on one of these out drives that goes in the deep part, the actual housing of the gears, that was kind of a big pain. But I guess it's on to step 2, which is assembling the gears on these shafts. Once I figure out where those gears are, I think the gears are these ones. There's no numbers or anything. So I'll get these out of here and I'll assemble them onto those rods. And I'll get these halves out too, since that's all going together. Does this say make 2 here too? You know, I actually finally found the make 2 thing. It's right next to the wrench there. Does it say make 2 here? Back there. Yeah, it's grand. But attaching gears. So there's like a plastic ring somewhere. This little washer, I guess, goes in there. That guy. And we got bearings, some sleeve spacers, and the gearbox halves here. So I guess that's next on the agenda. Okay, so like gearbox gears were kind of easy. The bearings, a couple of pins, a couple of plastic pieces I had to search for. So far it doesn't look too bad. There's bearings throughout the whole car. You don't have any bushings, so that's good. So it came with all these ball bearings. It's the other half of the gearbox. And I'll just put the other half on here. So the gearbox just has one screw holding it together at the moment. As long as everything's free inside, because you can kind of see. Just gotta make sure it's not binding. So the next part, I guess I'm putting the belt pulley on there, and then the bottom part that holds the diff in place. So on to step 3. So step 3 required to go to the end tree and cut off these pieces. I needed this pin. I needed that circlip or E-clip. This is the bottom piece. And I'll show it as it's assembled. Yeah, so after getting that together, there's the E-clip. Once that's all together, the diff gear goes right in. It's kind of easier. It doesn't really necessarily say which way it goes. I'm going to say the pin's sticking out there, like so. It doesn't necessarily say which way this has to go, but we'll put it this way. Just lays right in there. Seems to be pretty free. Base cap, I guess, can only go one way. Like this. So that's not too bad. But yeah, that's the gearbox. Almost assembled. Okay, so, well, I was saying rear gearbox, but it's actually the front gearbox. The motor sits on the front of the car. So this is the main gearbox, put it that way. So this is for the belt. This is the front out drives. The motor is going to mount, obviously, in this little groove. So that step's done. Now to put this plate on here, along with a couple more plastic pieces that I gotta look for. And I believe these plastic pieces are right here. At least that in particular plastic piece is right there. The other ones I have to search for. So yeah, after digging out, this is KK1. It's gonna go there. We got the 3 other screws already. There's more of these somewhere. There. And we got the plate and that piece. It's kind of like a gear protector. So put that on there. That should be next segment. So step 4, let's just putting these plates on. This one piece I still didn't have in the last segment, but I found that right on the street with this guy. That's basically the front transmission. I guess it's kind of like a roll bar. The next step will be putting the spur gear on along with wherever that piece is. I guess it's a JJ piece. That's a JJ piece. That looks like a spur gear hub. So I'll look for those, and I'll show this with that installed. Okay, so step 5 is done. That wasn't too bad. It was just basically mounting the spur gear. So another time, I guess I'll get to the next step, step 6. Okay, so flip the page. Took some effort to flip the page. We got the gearbox. The gearbox is already ready. We have the gear for the motor. In this pile here, there's 2 short screws. And back in the box is a motor. Right here, the Johnson motor. I'm just going to assemble it with this for today. That, in particular, gear cover is also going to go on in this step. That's easy to find, normally. We got that on this parts tree, which is the B parts tree. So I'll get that all on there, and I'll show you that assembled. Okay, so the Johnson motor is mounted on there. I'm probably going to convert it to a brushless, but right now I just want to, get it assembled with the stock parts. And that completes step 6. Step 6 is an easy step to get to. Now I'm gonna have to start doing shock towers, so I guess I gotta glue them. So next video might be, or the next step, which is step 7, which actually uses the B bag, will be done shortly. So onto bag B. Open up bag B. So we have like a little shaft, some more bearings, some screws, standoffs for the, I guess, shock absorber mounting, and more screws and ball studs. I sanded both the shock towers after gluing them, all the edges. So now I'm ready to do basically this whole page. So I'll show that in a second. Okay, so for step 7, basically I sub-assembled the shock tower and this brace piece that holds ball studs for the front, camber links. Anyway, I guess that's going to go together right now. I got all the screws ready. So here's step 7. Step 7, I mounted is that in particular shock tower that has the ball studs for the shocks and this brace with these ball studs that are for the camber links. So step 7 is done. Put that motor over here, and now on to step 8, which will be mounting that gear with its shaft. It looks like 2 of the bearings that are in this picture. So I don't know what these other 2 bearings are going to be for at the moment. So we'll see how this goes. So all step 8 was is just put that shaft together with that one gear and stick in this gearbox. This is, I guess, the rear gearbox. So I'll add some oil, I'll put that on, I'll start step 9. So step 9 is a little bit more extensive. I gotta put all these together and then basically assemble the rear gearbox with everything. So step 9 sub-assemblies, which was basically just getting this gearbox to have its pulley together, and then even this part gets these ball studs. So now all this stuff is going to go all in one big piece. Okay, so step 9 is pretty much complete. I just have to find one more screw, since it seems like I was missing that screw. I got screws there, but somehow, some way, that one screw just wasn't in the bag. I'm pretty sure it didn't fall on the floor, so maybe it's somewhere else. So, yeah. Step 9 is done. So, step 10 was pretty much the last of the B parts, which was this little tensioner. It's just 2 bearings and a screw and some shimmies. I just don't have this one screw for some reason. But I'll go on to bag C and start bolting on all these suspension mount screws and pieces. Okay, with step 11, I emptied bag C to get all these screws, other things for the next page pretty much. I had to cut 2 plastic pieces, NNs and JJ12. I think these are NN11. Yeah, NN11. So start by getting those onto the front of the chassis. Okay, so basically step 11 basically puts these 2 metal standoffs and the 2 front arm pillow blocks in place. That wasn't too bad. Now on to deal with the awesome step 12 of, looks like I have steering linkage and other things that I gotta look for, so I'll get that started. Okay, so I already assembled those 2 turnbuckles, but these were the pieces I was looking for, which are the bell cranks. All the other pieces are all right here, and there may even be some more parts of it here, so I'll just assemble that. Okay, so step 12 was just basically assembling the whole bell crank. There was these 2 flat screws on the bottom, which were interesting. But at least it has full ball bearings on this rack. Like sometimes the racks don't come with full ball bearings, but surprisingly this one did. So step 12 is done. You may be noticing I'm not using these little dust rings. I didn't even know where they are yet, so I'm not even bothering with them. I usually don't use them anyway. So on to step 13. We're going to be mounting this and the rack onto the chassis. It's using these little screws here that looks like I have every one of them, so I'll put that on. Yeah, so this was actually one of the easier steps. There are 2 holes to put them mounts in, even on the bottom underneath here. For the standoffs, are these look like stainless steel standoffs, at least for the bearings to sit in, so that's nice. So at least the steering linkage is nice and firm and stiff and smooth because of the ball bearings. Anyway, on to step 14, which is going to be obviously messing with the knuckles and the A-arms for the front. So I'll get that all set up. So step 14 has all these little pieces. There's plenty of metal pieces, pivot pins, and the front arms with dog bone ends or out drives or whatever you want to call them, axles. And you got the front knuckles. That all has to go together for step 14. So step 14 was basically assembling these whole arm and knuckle pieces. These little end pieces and that spacer go on this pin, and they're very much too much of a pain in the ass to kind of keep on them, so they're just ready. So now I'm just going to put the front end with these 2 parts together for step 15. Okay, so step 15 is just doing that, and that got on there pretty easily. So here's steps 16 and 17, and I'm going to stick the gearbox on the front end, Already got the dog bones ready and the turnbuckles ready. That front little piece is ready too. Okay, so step 17 was pretty easy. Just bolted the whole front gearbox on. There's also this bumper. So it's just all Phillips head screws on there. Anyway, next to go to bag D and get the rear end on. Okay, so open it up, bag D. Gives me more stuff. It gives me the future here, which is awesome. I really love working on shocks. But I don't know. These shocks are pretty simple. I'm gonna start working on these arms, get these pivot pieces cut out the rear arms, and do all the stuff ready. Okay, so all the D parts are out. I kind of sub-assembled them already. So now I'm just gonna assemble everything to the back end of the car, at least to there. Okay, so I got the rear arms on and their mounting blocks, and now I'm pretty much up to part 20, and that's already done. So now on to step 21. Step 21 is putting the rear end on and all this stuff on. I'm just gonna do it all in one shot. Even found that piece, the NN1 belt cover. So I'm gonna get these two steps ready. Okay, well, part 21 and 22 I just did. Belt fit right on there. It all went together. And onto the fun and exciting shock absorbers. Actually, I guess I'll put the cover on the belt too. So now I have the car belted and almost together. So earlier I thought I was missing one of these screws, but it was actually put here. I didn't notice in the drawings that that screw wasn't put in. So this is actually a longer screw than these ones. So I thought one screw was missing, so I guess it wasn't. But there's a longer screw that holds this belt pulley cover on. Anyway, these pulley covers actually don't go on with more than one hand, so they're not exactly the easiest, even like this. But it will just sit like that pretty much. I may or may not keep these on. I kind of don't recommend them because it makes it so you don't know what's going on with the belt. The belt's still going to get dirt in from here, so, but these are the covers that go on. So I'll bolt these guys on. Okay, so step 23 is all done now. This is bolted on. There's 2 screws underneath that bolt into the battery bay, and then the screws for the front body mounts. They don't really matter where they go. They can go either way. You can kind of put them wherever you need to put them, but I'll just put them the way that the kit says to put them. So I'll just move the car out of the way here. And step 24 is assembling the shock absorbers. Most of the stuff that's small is right here. This is one of the shafts. These have plastic shocks, so they have to be cut out of the tree. Cylinders, the seal caps, and the top caps. These top caps actually have the built-in top, connecting point. They come with 3 different pistons. It's saying to use piston V10 here, which is a 3-hole piston. Some people prefer 2-hole pistons. Some people prefer 1 hole, and there's even like no holes. In some cases, there's also, I don't know what you call them, shock limiting spacers, spring adjustment height spacers, droop level, bottom end pieces. So I'm going to cut that all out, and start making all these shocks. This is the easy part of those guys. I got the tissue ready, the oil that's stock in the car. This is hard. There's no real name for it. Just like the springs are just white, but when you look at the manual, it shows optional springs and white isn't anywhere on that list, so you don't know what level spring that is. Well, unless it's like the clear one, but I don't think it's that hard of a spring. So the stock springs are what you see. They'll probably work. I mean, I'm gonna try to keep the car very stock. Anyway, I'm gonna get 24 done and I'll show you all 4 of the shocks. Okay, so step 24 was just basically sub-assembling the shocks. So the front shocks actually have this one little spacer, so it makes them a little bit shorter. Otherwise, they're both the same shock. I'm going to say that these are very similar to the HPI RS4 Rally shocks, in a sense they might even be the same shocks. But I think this part right here is this one piece, when I think the HPI one has another sleeve in it. Anyway, shocks were pretty quick. They're a little bit easier to assemble than other company shocks. Anyway, on to step 25. So step 25 is going to require filling them with oil. I have these little, what do you call them, bladders or balloon seals for the top. So when they hit the top, they kind of just have a little bit of bounce to them, I guess. That's the purpose of that, I guess. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, the front shocks are going to be shorter than the rear shocks once they're done. So step 25, I'm going to fill them with oil. And step 26, I'll put them on the car. And I'll show you them on the car. After this point, I'm going to basically skip through because this is just basically the assembly of the car, and I may even change the motor and stuff like that. So I'll just do these shocks and put them on the car first. Okay, so per the instructions, I did all that. They're a little simpler. Normally, like other companies say to kind of put that thing on and then push the piston up, but that doesn't say it there. But that helps bleed out all the air even faster. Anyway, the rears I separate over here, fronts. So the shocks actually go fairly easy on. I kind of prefer to start from the top and then the bottom. Kind of like facing the stuff a certain way. Doing this with the camera on my main hand isn't really that good, but it'll start yelling. Anyway, this isn't too much difficulty. You can't see anything because it's kind of hard to make you see anything. But the front shocks kind of sit straight. They kind of sit level. And they should just go up and down. When the wheels are on there, it won't matter where they sit. Like, I gotta adjust all the lengths and everything else. But this is actually the only part that you might actually see me applying the parts, because this is the only way. This needs to be one-handed. Assuming it's one-handed. But they snap on pretty easy. I think the nice thing about on-road cars is that usually it's just ball ends holding the shocks on. Off-road, they're normally using a screw or some kind of thing to hold on there. So the shocks on are pretty easy. So I just gotta adjust the rear camber angle, obviously, on both sides of the rear. And on the front, a little bit more on there too. Maybe toe in, toe out. So that was all the way up to this step. It says to get your radio gear ready, which isn't really an issue. I just gotta find a servo that I want to use, and I usually use high tech. I don't know. I just have a thing for high tech. I'll find that in a second. Okay, so steps 27 to 37 require the last bag of lettered parts. All these screws, more screws in the bag. I got the servo ready. I kind of prefer high tech, so I'm using the high tech HS5625 MG. It will definitely fit in there. I just have all this wire to manage with it. Got this screw that goes in it. So for the next step is just saying to use either Q4 or Q5. I'm very likely to use Q4. So flipping to the next page. It was Q4 after all. It's saying to kind of mount it like this. And I don't know if that groove actually means anything. There's a groove on there. But that may mean center or not. I don't know. Well, I'll just look for these end parts and then mount it inside. There's a turnbuckle in this bag somewhere, along with ball cups. The rest of the stuff, I can use anything. I got that brush motor in there. I can just use like something like this guy. I don't know if it's going to fit in there, but it doesn't have to go inside. It can just sit on top. But there's plenty of brush speed controllers I have lying around. They're not LiPo compatible in the sense that they'll run the battery to explode, but other than that, I'm just trying to assemble the car to be drivable. I have brushless motors and plenty of wire. For some reason, like, they tell you to put the speed controller all the way in the back of this thing, so you use the longest possible wire to get to the speed controller. And in my opinion, maybe the speed controller can just mount on top of the servo. I mean, why not? And I can put the receiver like even further back if I have to. And not even use this. I don't know, maybe I can put a battery in there. Yeah, one battery here, one battery there. Anyway, yeah. Let's get more of this car assembled. Okay, so I was able to get the servo mounted. There's these little shims in there to kind of make it perfect for the high-tech servo. There's openings in places, I guess, just to see what's going on. Or maybe you can mount the wires underneath. Not really sure why. It's right by where the wire comes out of the servo. Well, anyway, that's started. I'm going to just put this cover on all together, and then I'll get to the wheel wells, the antenna thing, and all that stuff, and I'll show that completed. So anyway, screwed on the electronics box covers and these fenders, or wheel wells, or whatever you want to call them. So it's starting to look just like the box picture. Next is putting the wheels on, and I'll show the finished kit pretty much without electronics. So on to the steps 33 and 34. I got the tires together. I just glued the rims to the tires. I did not use the foams. I don't recommend using foams with the rally tires. Maybe use the foams if you're using street tires or you're on a track where you're very competitive, but these tires are actually very hard rubber. They don't need any foam in them. Don't waste your time with the foam. I also have all the step all the step 34 parts ready to go on to get this car to look like a car. And once that's over, I'll get to putting the rest of that stuff on. And I'm not as far as the body yet. I do not have a body for the car, but I'm going to go as far as just making the rolling chassis. I've said this many times already, but I'll show you what the wheels on this thing. So after those steps, the wheels are on the car, and you have the rear body mounts that can definitely be mounted the other direction also, depending on what body you're using. Now I'm just going to put the battery cover on and the front bumper, and I'll show what I call the final product of the car without electronics. So I finished the final steps of getting the car to be an actual rolling chassis. We got the battery cover on, which is just held on with 2 screws, and then the front bumper. It's a nice little touch because sometimes it gets don't come with bumpers. So that's as far as you can get without electronics. If you have a body, you use a body. They give you other stuff to talk about, like body clips and other things, basics, and even a setup sheet. But I have to say that the car wasn't too bad. I think it came out pretty nice. So anyway, that car took me maybe 2.5 nights, in the sense of like 3 hours each time. So that wasn't too long. Sometimes they might take longer. I think the hardest part of making the kit was the differentials, of all things. The shocks take the longest amount of time because you gotta get the air bubbles out of them. And maybe gluing the tires might take a little time too, but other than that, the kit was pretty fast and easy. And this is that BMX guy, and thanks for watching.